sense of time.
Call this meeting to order. Thank you all for joining us for the December 14th, 2015 council meeting. If you have a cell phone, please set it to silent or vibrate. In case of an emergency, go out the doors to the right to the stairs and down, or all the way around the corner to the left to another set of stairs. Please do not use the elevators in case of an emergency. Thank you very much. And first I'd like to welcome Pastor Caleb Craig from Remedy Church. Thank you. Want to join us at the podium? Thanks for being here tonight.
That went surprisingly well. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the day that you have unfolded before us. We thank you for the people that you have brought into our path. We thank you for the interactions that we had. We thank you for the conversations and the decisions, the thoughts that we processed, and the things that we stressed over and the things that we had joy in. Tonight we ask that all the members of the council and everyone in this room would discuss from a place of integrity and a place of honesty, a place of purity of heart, that we might desire a better city for ourselves, but also for the many people that call this place home. I ask that you would give wisdom to those who are returning to the council and those who are new to it, that in all things you would give us wisdom and discernment about what's best for us to move forward in the future. We thank you for the city that you provided. We thank you for the people that you've caused to live in it. We pray that you would be with us tonight. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. You will join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of community organization presentations tonight. First of all, we have Mr. Bill Turner, CEO from Lower Shore Enterprises. If you would join us at the podium, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having me here this evening and sharing our story. I'm the new CEO at Lower Shore Enterprises. I've been there 11 months, and I can honestly tell you I've yet to have a bad day. So it's a fabulous place to work. Lower Shore Enterprises' mission is to train and find employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. And we began as a sheltered workshop in 1967, and as a collaboration among individuals, primarily a gentleman by the name of Jack Nichols. Some of you may remember him. And they were concerned about what happened to high school students who left high school and those with disabilities and what job opportunities they had in the community. And we actually started out with an actual workshop, and they made pallets and crab mallets and things like that and sold it to our customers in the community. But we've evolved many times over the last 48 years, and today we're no longer a woodworking shop, but we have a rather nice manufacturing facility on Owen Branch Road, right here in Salisbury. We employ 45 staff, and we provide services to 150 individuals with disability at our facility. So, and we no longer just employ the disabled. We also have a career development center where we work on job skills and placement in the community for those with disabilities. And our resolve is to find community integrated employment for all of our clients. Many of us take for granted the joy that work provides and the thrill of accomplishing a task and taking home a weekly paycheck. But LSE pays real wages to individuals with disabilities, and last year we poured approximately $1.9 million in the form of wages into our community. So many of our job opportunities at our facility include, we have a mail production facility. We fold and stuff envelopes and mail newsletters and tax bills for several municipalities here on the shore. We have an assembly operation where we manufacture shipping containers for companies in the microwave industry. And we build wiring assemblies, and we can sort, count, fold, and seal things for people. We also have probably a well-known document destruction business. You might see our truck around town. And Lower Shore Enterprises is the only NAID certified, AAA certified document destruction business on the shore. And we provide those services to many of our local medical facilities, including PRMC, Peninsula Orthopedic, and also several businesses, including Purdue Farms. We also have a custodial division, and we send crews of 3 and 4 individuals out into the community for custodial work. And they do, some of our customers are Delmarva Power, several of the state offices, and Miller Commercial Management also employs our individuals. All of our individuals start out with an individual plan, and we let them decide what their career goals are. And then we start on teaching job skills and job coaching and job development with each of those individuals. Many of our clients begin with internships and volunteer opportunities with the hope that someday that'll become an actual job for them, whether it's part-time or full-time. Employment for individuals with disabilities is much different than those who don't have disabilities. As a matter of fact, the employment rate continues to decrease, even though the recession is sort of behind us right now. And it's always a struggle for those that are a little bit different to find employment in our community. On a state-by-state basis, employment and community integration varies. The national average is approximately 17% of individuals receiving services are employed nationwide. In even the best states, that percentage is only 30%. And I'm proud to say at Lower Shore Enterprises, our percentage is 50% of our individuals work in a community setting. And the rest of them work in our facility only. For those that we continue to work with to integrate, we can provide on-site employment at our facility. But a lot of people ask us, a lot of employers in the community ask us, what is it for that employer? Well, there are tax credits that can be used. It can amount up to several $1,000s a year for the first 2 years of employment. And really just a feeling of satisfaction. You're helping somebody that has a great work ethic, that shows up to work on time. Many of our employers, wonder how they can help, and a lot of times all we do is ask them to consider us or consider those individuals with disabilities, maybe try an internship, and we provide support to those individuals on the job. I'd like to invite each of you to come out for a tour. The mayor is coming on January 5th at noon. If any of you can make it, we'd love to have you join us. And several of our clients heard that I was coming here this evening, and they insisted that I bring a holiday card with me, with artwork of which was done by one of our clients, and also an embossed pencil to share with you. And the embossing was done at our facility also. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'll pass these out if I can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I know that they have been an integral part of Just Do It and labeling the cans, and
Sure.
that would not be the smooth operation that it is if not for folks at LSE. I certainly do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Could just share a website or a phone number where people can get in touch with you if they have a business and they're looking for something.
I think there might have been a banner, but if not, it's lseworks.com, and our number is 749-6183.
Okay, 749-6183.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have for community presentation, community gardens, Camden Community Garden and Green SBY partnership, tag teaming.
She is here in support.
Oh, okay, supporting, okay, so Camden Community Gardens, well, I know this is near and dear to your heart, so
It is, and I'll try to stay within a reasonable time frame because I know you all have other things to do. But I am Martin Hutchison, pastor at Community of Joy Church, a member of Green SBY, also a part of the Corner Church Collective. All three entities met with you in March of this year to lease a vacant city lot and develop what is now known as the Camden Community Garden. I want to thank you for your risk that you took in leasing that lot to us. I truly believe that this statement that I came across in a community gardening book is true, that all of the world's problems can be solved in a community garden, or a garden as that says. I believe in a community garden. We've seen that in this last year, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. That is the lot that you all leased to us as it looked on March the 31st when Mayor Jim Ireton signed the lease to us. This is the same perspective a few months later. I think you can see it's a definite improvement. This is looking at it towards St. Francis, the other perspective. This is looking at it in that way again a couple months later. This is just last week. Unfortunately, the grass is dead, but the garden is still growing produce and vegetables and being harvested from the community that surrounds it, the neighborhood, and being much appreciated. We sought to involve the neighbors, the churches, the community. This was when we were establishing the beds, and these are neighborhood children working with two people from our youth group. There, that same night, we also established the beds, and you can just see the influx of children. These are neighborhood kids helping to establish a garden that they would come to regularly and enjoy the produce throughout the summer. These are neighborhood children and parents that are helping us shovel the 4 dump truck loads of dirt, soil that we got from Blue Hen Organics in Camden or Frankfort, Delaware. 50% of that soil came from SU. I understand they no longer do it, but it was uneaten food or food waste that they took and recycled into compost and added it to topsoil, and it found its way into our garden. Again, another perspective. I had offers of people to come and use a bobcat to load these 4 dump truck loads of dirt into the beds, but I said, no, if we do that, we don't have any sweat equity and we don't have any community ownership. And so this is just one day, work day, a few of the people that stopped by to help. We shoveled by hand all 4 dump truck loads of dirt into those beds. And some of you are in the picture. This was the day we planted, and you can see, we put it next to the playground, or we wanted the lot next to the playground so that we could engage the children. I attended each of the community forums related to the curfew, and I believe that this is a better answer. This is part of the plus of the curfew plus that you all have been talking about. We have sought to engage the children at every turn, and they are eager to be involved, to pick vegetables, to eat vegetables, and you'll see that throughout this presentation. Again, just the neighborhood coming and learning and eager to learn. This little boy was reacting to the fact that his mom wanted to get involved and took the watering wand from him. And, she enjoyed it as much as he did. And that's what we found as we've done this. We've had neighbors from all walks of life, from the big houses that have one family living in them to the big houses that have many families living in them, come and join, picking vegetables, enjoying the produce, meeting one another. I still hear neighbors walk into the garden and introduce themselves to one another and make that connection. And so it really is building community. Children are always eager to pick things and take them home. And I'm always eager to help them learn how to do that. This is a family that lives down the street, and you can see they have a container full of various kinds of produce. There's string beans and tomatoes and cucumbers. Neffy was enjoying the long English cucumbers there. Again, anytime children come into the lot and there's something ready, I often have bags available and try to hand them to them and teach them how to pick things. They're picking cucamelons, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. You can just see the number of kids that are involved. It's been phenomenal. We've had over $16,000 given to us to invest in this garden. We've invested over $8,000 in the current garden as it was. $1,000 came from the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore for our irrigation, which cost about $1,400. We had an $1,800 gift in kind from Wilfrey Corporation, who hooked up our water system to the city water that was there. We are doing a phase 2, and the Community Foundation gave us a grant just recently of $5,000 for additional 8 beds, which we intend to put in the spring. This is one of 2 parties that we hosted there. This was the ribbon cutting and garden unveiling party shortly after it was developed in June, and we invited the neighborhood to it. And these were all people who had worked in the development of the garden. We asked them to get in a picture and help us cut the ribbon. People have enjoyed picking produce. This was that day. We let people pick produce and take it home with them, and neighbors have enjoyed the bounty regularly. These are individuals that joined us and helped developing the garden in the initial phases. We have a sign that we've put up to communicate what's ready. That's in Spanish. The other side's in English. That says help yourself too, and then names the various vegetables. You'll see the white stakes on the beds. Those correspond with the sign, so people can easily identify what's ready. Jenny Rosenkrantz was impressed with our garden and came, and in September, every day except Sunday, we aired on PAC 14 as one of Delmarva's gardens, and it was an hour-long segment, beautiful segment that she did on our garden. We've engaged Pinehurst Elementary School because Community of Joy is a faith-based partner for Pinehurst. We partnered with Dr. George Whitehead, who you can see kind of in the back, and my back's to us and the arm's up, and he's kind of in the fold of my arm looking at us. He and AmeriCorps, he got some funding with AmeriCorps, and we brought all of the 5th grade classes on September 11th to the garden to do some volunteering and to pick some vegetables, as well as we hired a chef, Chef Ted Moore from Adams Tap House Grill, to then turn those vegetables into something that children could eat that afternoon, and that was a lot of fun. What you see on the ground is the only kind of vandalism we have had, and I don't want to call it vandalism, it's really mischief. Green tomatoes are fun things to throw. And I was in the garden the night before, and there was nothing wrong, nothing out of the ordinary. I came back in about a half an hour before the kids arrived that day and found 2/3 of a 5-gallon bucket filled with produce that had been picked, and they had been throwing and having fun. One of the neighbors told me he yelled at a bunch of children and encouraged them to leave, but not before they had done that. So what happened there was I used it as a teachable moment. I poured it all out on the cardboard I had in the shed, and at this point I'm asking them how many live in the neighborhood, and they have their hands raised. About half of each class lived in the neighborhood. And then I talked about what this was and how it had happened, and that it was food that was now destroyed and unusable. And that made quite an impression. They wrote essays the week after, and almost every essay included something about what a shame it was that kids were throwing food, and it decreased after that, so we were pleased. That day, we not only picked vegetables and pulled weeds, but we also learned how to plant. Here they planted radishes, and it was fun to watch the kids interpret what I said in terms of how I directed them and plant it in their own way. I should have put a picture here of how it grew, because some of them listened to me and planted them with the spacing I said. Some of them just dumped them all in a pile and kind of moved them around, and it just was fun to watch. And some of them got really intense. Here we're talking about cucumbers and some tomatoes. We had 93 tomato plants in the garden, and for a while, we were having a hard time keeping ripe tomatoes because the demand was that great, and that's what encouraged us then to develop the rest of the lot and add 8 more beds. We have 16 raised beds that are 24 feet long by 4 feet wide, all drip irrigated, and we're going to have 8 more beds added with drip irrigation. Picking string beans was probably the most fun thing that they did. They did not want to turn in their string beans at the end when it was time for them to go, but we didn't have enough string beans for every child to take enough home for a meal. So what we did was we ended up having 21 bags that day that made a meal for a family of 4 to 6 people. And when we got back to the school, I gave them each a ticket, and we drew numbers, and it was like The Price is Right. When your name is called, the kids came down, and I should have included that video, because you would have thought we gave them $1,000 to hear their cheering and excitement to get a bag of green beans to take home to Mom. They helped us we had herbs. These are, that's lemon basil that they're deadheading, and they just were eager to learn and do anything they could. This is Chef Ted Moore with his chef of the day. He's teaching him how to peel a cucumber, which then was cut up and made into a cucumber and tomato salad, which when he told me that that's what he was doing, I thought, these kids aren't going to like this. It's not a good choice at all. He did that in tomato bisque, and they loved it, absolutely loved it. There is a handful of the variety of different tomatoes that we grew. All of those are ripe and ready to eat. We grew a lot of heirloom tomatoes. The bright yellow ones were my favorite. They're a topaz. Just lots of fun. And there's another collection of some of the kinds of tomatoes that we grew, and all of those are ripe and ready to eat. We also thought that it would be really fun to add a little free library, and so we had an Eagle Scout, Corey Bratton, who made it his Eagle Scout project to build and erect a little free library, which is the first place that kids go when they come off of the playground into the garden. They go and get a book or two, and it's just phenomenal, a number of books that we are giving out to children free. We're not asking them to put a book in, we're just asking them to enjoy reading the books. And just child after child, I often ask them, can I take your picture with your books? And they're eager. Again, another perspective of what I think is beautiful. I hear neighbors tell me that before the garden, the lot was largely dog poop, and that it was hard to walk without walking in it. And we put up, at Chief Duncan's suggestion, a dog poop bag dispenser, and we have not found any in the garden at all. It's been a really neat thing. These are kids that have picked cucamelons. I only met 3 children all summer long that didn't like them. A cucamelon is a small cucumber, but it looks like a watermelon, thus the name cucamelon. It has cucumber flavor, but it has a little bit of a lemon zing to it, and the children just absolutely loved them. They'd come in there. One day I was working, and a little boy, I watched him get off the bus and walk around, come in the front entrance, go to the cucamelons, pick a whole handful, and throw them in his mouth. And because we're organic, there's no spray or anything harmful on them, and it was his after-school snack, and it was just really neat to see. The second community event that we hosted in the garden, and we will be hosting more, and we as the Corner Church Collective, we did a fall harvest party, and we had about 75 children from the neighborhood. And unbelievably, almost every child from the neighborhood, with the exception of maybe one family, came without parents. And that we have seen. We have seen children as young as preschool on that playground with no parental observation or person around at all. And so we're working to engage the children because they all tell me that they're bored. They're bored, they're bored, they're bored. That's why they do the vegetable throwing, because they're bored. And so we're trying to engage that, and this was one of our attempts. As you can see, they loved fresh vegetables. These kids, some of them wouldn't even hardly let me get it washed off before they were eating the carrots. When do you see a kid smiling with a bag of collard greens? Not often. Well, there you go. I'm done. Any questions? I look forward to joining you next Monday and Casey with Green SBY as we hope to work with you to lease a second location. And St. Francis Catholic Church is going to anchor that for us. We're excited.
No, that was, I wanted to make sure he plugged that, that's all. Bravo.
I'm trying to be sensitive to time.
Do you have a phone number or website?
Website is www.growcamden.com, GROWCAMDEN.com. And the phone number,
That's okay.
that's,
As long as they have someone to
yep.
get in touch with.
And we have a Facebook page and website, and it's updated regularly, and all of these pictures are there, and we're constantly telling stories. And we've used Camden Next Door Neighbor. If some of your neighborhood associations aren't familiar with that phone app, it has been wonderful for us in the Camden neighborhood. Debbie Campbell got us connected with that. It's a nationwide app, and it's a private social network for neighborhoods. It's by email invitation only, so you have to know the person lives in a neighborhood to invite them. It's been a wonderful thing for us to promote the garden, but it also promotes crime. It doesn't promote crime, but tells you about crime that's happening and lets you be aware of that. Chief Duncan posts on it regularly. It's really nice. It's a great app. I wish all of our neighborhoods had them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For joining us. It's a tough act to follow, two of them. That's okay. North Shore Enterprises and Camden Community Garden, we really appreciate both of you coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion to adopt the legislative agenda as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion?
I'd like to move to remove resolution number 2570 from the consent agenda and place it immediately after the consent agenda because of the changes made to it.
I have a motion, do I have a second? No second. And where would you like to move that to, directly after the consent agenda?
Correct.
Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And now I'll take a vote on the legislative agenda as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Nichols, consent agenda as amended.
Could we have a motion and a second first?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that would be a good idea. There were so many. Could have had it.
I know.
Okay. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda, for the adoption of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Very much.
Thanks. The only item is since you removed the resolution, is the manufacturing exemption request for Poly One Design Structures and Solutions LLC for their equipment purchased in 2013 and 2014. And we need an approval for that. And that's it.
Any questions, council, or discussion? Is there anyone here? From this group? All right. Seeing no questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the adoption of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next, entertain a motion to approve the award of bids.
Resolution 2570.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, thank you. Motion to approve resolution 2570. Move down to this spot.
So moved.
Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you and good evening. Resolution 2570 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, changing the resident agent to accept service of process of government entity from John Pick to myself, M. Thomas Stevenson Jr., the designate principal office. I'm struggling with these braces tonight.
That's okay. And the changes that were made required that to be moved to the consent agenda.
I was saying that M. Tom Stevenson is a resident of Maryland and the executive officer, and then it looks like it changed the street address of the city to 125 North Division Street. So I would make a motion to accept those changes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the changes to the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of making those adjustments to resolution number 2570, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. And any further discussion on the resolution? All those in favor of the adoption of resolution 2570, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the award of bids.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Ms. Miller, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have two items this evening. The first one is the award of bid for contract 116-15. That's the West Isabella Street Water Main Replacement and Cody Cox Branch Drainage Improvements. So this contract called for contractors to furnish all labor, materials, and equipment necessary for the installation of a 12-inch water main on West Isabella Street and for the rehabilitation of approximately 520 feet of 48-inch diameter storm drain pipe crossing West Isabella Street and West Road. The work for these projects is in the same area and is thus more efficient and cost-effective to have both completed by the same vendor. The procurement department followed standard competitive bidding practices by advertising in the Daily Times, on the City of Salisbury's website, utilizing the city's vendor list, and advertising on the State of Maryland's website, eMaryland Marketplace. A total of 2 vendors submitted a bid by the due date and time of November 10th at 2:30 p.m. The first bids that we received did have 10% contingency. The Department of Public Works asked that we take that out, therefore leaving the total bids for Chesapeake Turf at $2,740,545.90, and Corrado Construction Company for a total of $2,049,760.50. Corrado Construction Company was the apparent low bidder. The bid documents were reviewed by the Procurement Department and the Salisbury Public Works Department, and Corrado Construction was determined to be the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. If an award of bid is approved by the Salisbury City Council this evening, the official award to the vendor is contingent upon approval from the Maryland Department of the Environment, since a portion of the work is funded by an EPA grant. Funds are available in the noted accounts. There is one change to the account noted to the FY07 bond, the amount that's $35,352. Because of a bond pool change, that account number did change, but that's an internal adjustment. So at this point, since Corrado Construction Company was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and reference checks did yield favorable results, the Procurement Department requests Council's approval to award this contract 116-15, to Corrado Construction Company, LLC, in the amount of $2,049,760.50. Okay. The next item this evening is a declaration of surplus for the Salisbury Police Department. The Procurement Department received a request to surplus 2 vehicles, unit number 34 and 38. Both are over 10 years old, have high mileage, and are in need of repairs that would really exceed the value of the vehicles. Additional details are noted in your memos, and I did note which vehicles they are and their VIN numbers. Upon declaration of surplus, as approved by council, the Salisbury PD and/or the Procurement Department will attempt to sell the vehicles at auction. If unsellable through an auction service, the vehicles will be sold locally as salvage.
Any questions regarding that item? Thank you very much. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of the award bids as presented by Ms. Miller, please signify by saying aye.
Ms. Mitchell, there was one other thing in your packet. It's not for approval by council, but it was informational in nature. It's a change order number 1. Did you receive that in your packet?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions there, or would you like me to read over that?
I want to give a quick briefing.
Sure. Sure. So this is for contract 107-15. It's for the wastewater treatment plant BNR ENR upgrade. This is change order number 1. Let's see, I forget the date the resolution was passed. I think I have it here. Actually, 28th of May, yep. That normally change orders in the amount of $5,000 or more come in front of council for approval, but because of the size of this contract, which was a $50 million contract, certainly council wouldn't want to see every single change order that's over $5,000. So the amount of the change orders was, well, get approved per the resolution. No, you would see them all.
I understand.
You would see them all. You would see them all, but approval by council isn't necessary for a certain threshold of change order. I apologize if I misstated that. So this change order actually is for a credit of $97,000, and it actually reduces the time to substantial completion. So this is informational, and all the information is in the council packet.
This is the one that we passed a resolution to change the threshold for what needs to come before us for a vote.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The size of the project.
Yes, that's
The
correct.
council has said that
Mhm.
you don't need to approve each one.
Right,
See
but
them,
everyone you get to see, correct.
Thank you very much for that information. Are there any questions?
Okay, you're welcome.
Next, I will entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2571, accepting private donation from Pohanka of Salisbury for New Year's Eve in downtown Salisbury.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevens.
Again, thank you. This is Resolution 2571. This is a private donation from Pohanka for this year's New Year's Eve celebration. These funds would be used for items such as party favors, paying the band, porta potties, overtime for staff, and that sort of thing.
Very, very generous.
Yes, it is. Appreciate it very much if the council chooses to accept the donation.
Anybody here from? Thank you very much to everyone. Any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of acceptance of resolution number 2571 and the donation for New Year's Eve from Pohanka of Salisbury, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Next up, I'll need a motion to approve resolution number 2571, accepting grant funding for a variety of Maryland Office of Highway Safety funds.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. Ordinance 2572 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury accepting grant funds from the Maryland Office of Highway Safety.
I'm sorry, that was 2572.
2572?
My sheet said 2571 as well. Mr. Bodo, Mr. Ireton,
I was
you're under
looking
the
at,
understanding that it was 2572.
correct.
Mr. Ireton.
Yeah.
I misstated, there was a typo on my sheet. So
Okay.
I just want to make sure we
Are
have
we
a
right?
motion and second before we could.
2572?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. So again, a resolution of the City of Salisbury accepting grant funds from the Maryland Office of Highway Safety for traffic safety programs. The City of Salisbury will enter into an MOU with the Maryland Office of Highway Safety. These funds will cover overtime. Officers will prepare and submit activity and performance reports, track numbers of citations issued for each program, which should result in safer streets for the City of Salisbury. The dollar amount is $14,500. The programs are impaired driving at $6,000, aggressive driving at $4,000, distracted driving at $1,500, seatbelt enforcement at $1,000, and $2,000 for portable breathalyzers, again for a total of $14,500. The administration is asking the council to approve this award.
Are these year-round grants, or is this sometimes we get a flooded holiday for that period of time?
I'll defer that question to the Colonel. Can you come up, please? Thank you, Colonel.
Do we have a specific time frame or just?
It's an annual grant, and each one of those dollar amounts depends on what time of year. There's statistical information the state uses that gives you a window to use that particular pockets of money.
Okay, so they're all different.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I want to
Colonel.
reiterate during the holidays that people drive safely and know that there are extra patrols out. So, any other questions from council? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor of approval of resolution number 2572, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Next up is a motion to approve ordinance number 2365 for first reading. Any motion for that, please?
So moved.
Okay, this is an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving an amendment of the FY 2016 general fund budget to appropriate funding for the traffic division bucket truck. And as described in the work session, this is basically shifting the monies from one vehicle to another. There was an estimate for the purchase of the vehicle that exceeded by this amount, and sufficient amount of money was saved on the other truck to pay for it. Whereas the actual cost of the replacement bucket truck for the traffic division exceeds the budgeted amount in the city's FY 2016 budget, and whereas the actual cost of the sanitation division refuse truck was less than the budgeted amount in the FY 2016 budget, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the city's fiscal year 2016 general fund budget be and is hereby amended as follows, with a decrease public works sanitation by $10,700 and increase in public works traffic by an equivalent amount.
Call the question, and all those in favor of approval of ordinance number 2365, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have public hearings for the Malone, regarding the Malone College Avenue and Snow Hill Road annexation and the annexation plan presented by City Administrator Tom Stevenson. Should I open the public hearing before you speak?
It's your choice, actually. I'll defer to Kim. Open it first.
Whichever you prefer. We'll open the public hearing regarding the Malone annexation and Snow Hill Road annexation plan. Do we have anyone signed up? Was there anyone here that wanted to speak on this? This morning by the city clerk?
Just in case.
Okay.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give or make clear is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes, thank you.
give us your presentation, please.
The next two resolutions are actually companion pieces. The first one will propose the annexation, and the second will approve it if the council decides to move forward. The City of Salisbury received on December 18th, 2014, a request for annexation that was signed by at least 25% of the persons who are registered voters in that area and persons who own land that account for at least 25% of the real property in that area. The City of Salisbury certified that the signatures were accurate. It appears that the petition dated December 18th, 2014 meets all of the requirements of law. As such, it is hereby proposed and recommended that the boundaries of the City of Salisbury be changed. The zoning map of the City of Salisbury should be amended to include the newly annexed property in the general commercial zoning district. This resolution shall take effect upon the expiration of 45 days following the passage of the resolution, subject to, however, the right of referendum as contained in the Local Government Article Act.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council regarding this?
I guess I have just, it's saying in here that the new zoning for the annex land cannot be substantially different from the existing county zoning. But it's, reading through, it's saying that there's gonna need to be some approval from the county.
Yeah, I think we need to get to that when we do the resolution itself.
So we have no idea where the county stands on this?
I think Mr. Lennox stands prepared to do that, but let's see if there are any other public comments. Probably should have asked that before I asked council. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Need a motion to approve resolution number 2565. Should we do them together or?
Separately.
Okay.
So
We haven't done a whole lot of annexations. Don't quite have this down yet. And a second? Thank you very much. Okay, now, Mr. Ritter, questions?
all right, so I guess maybe Mr. Lennox needs to explain the county's position on.
Thank you very much. In order to answer that question, I presume Councilman Boda may be referring to a letter received today from the Maryland Department of Planning. I have to take a slight trip around the block to get to the bottom line and to reassure you that we're in good position to proceed this evening. The way the state law is set up, when an annexation is proposed and there's a zoning category associated with that annexation, we look at the city zoning and the county zoning in effect, and the law says that if it is substantially different, then it takes concurrence, and the wording actually is consent, by the county council, unless the applicant does not want to proceed within 5 years. So that sort of distracts us for a moment, but let's just say that even if county council consent was necessary, and if it was withheld, they could still wait to 5 years. In this case, and the reason I'm going over all that is you're going to see this continually in other annexations. In this case, the City of Salisbury procedures are much more definitive than other jurisdictions. You have in the packet this evening an annexation plan, which has been worked through Mr. Jakubiak as your lead negotiator. As part of that, you have a concept plan. The concept plan goes back several years, that concept that says if someone comes in and proposes to do something and you like that idea, you tie that down to the annexation. So in this case, you have a general commercial category, you have uses that are allowed, but even more restrictive is your annexation plan and the concept. So back to the question of consent. Every annexation gets referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission. This one went to them. They review the zoning for each, compare them, and make a decision and advise you whether or not they feel that it is substantially different. The codes will never match up perfectly, but they make a decision as whether it's substantially different. In the opinion of the Planning Commission, as recommended to you, and in effect to the county council consent is not necessary because the zones are substantially similar. Giving deference, however, and due deference to Maryland Department of Planning, they have identified one technical issue, and that is residential use. Residential use is not provided for in the county district, but yet it is in the city. On the other hand, you are voting tonight, should you proceed as proposed, to prevent residential. It is not included within the concept plan. It is not provided for under your annexation agreement. and therefore the use is not allowed in the zone. That was the long answer that says county council consent is not necessary.
Talk about going around the block to get to the store.
You will, hopefully, I think that issue is going to come up in the future, and I thought it was best for you to understand how we got to that point.
No, I truly appreciate the explanation.
Great, thank you.
Because I was weighing those two together, going, okay, how does that work? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox.
I just, as usual, Jack, questions to you are in and out, and which side and where, and how is this going to affect traffic? I'm looking at the picture.
Yes.
And now, this isn't as large as I'm used to, and with the change in the need for bifocals now, I'm not sure I'm looking at any of it correctly, actually. But I am looking at the map
Welcome to the
on
club.
attachment number 2, and it looks as if something comes out on East Lincoln Avenue. I don't see anything else coming out on East College Avenue, but there's a lot of lines and a lot of dashes. That's the only thing. I mean, this is infill construction. This is exactly where you want it. It's, you know, it's a major commercial and residential and everything else because it is Salisbury thoroughfare.
Sure.
But again, with the traffic that we have and with the backups that we have, is the East Lincoln, I really don't know if that's an in or out or not. Can you help me out?
Sure, may I defer to Mr. Jakubiec, please?
Sure. These would just be the same questions that I've had about annexations on South Division Street and those
Exactly.
areas there.
Exactly. And
Kubiak, do you want to hook that up here, projected, or?
I did bring a PowerPoint, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm looking at the same concept plan that you have in your packets.
Okay.
I wanted to have it here as backup for myself. There are two access points. There's one on East Lincoln, and there's one on East College Avenue. It's probably hard in the reproduction that you have there to see but on East College, but there is in fact a driveway on the road. In fact, it may be that driveway requires a deceleration lane, which would essentially connect Maryland Route 12 to the site's driveway to provide the capacity for turning movements there. The intersection on East Lincoln Avenue is much smaller and doesn't need that type of improvement.
You're saying that there's an entrance onto this property from Route 12 before the light at College Avenue?
No, it's on East College Avenue. The entrance is on East College Avenue, about 500 feet or so from the intersection, the Maryland Route 12
You
intersection.
get a little round thing here that's blown up with an arrow turning in. Now that's on Route 12, but then I don't see where your entrance is. You have a prettier picture than me? What are we looking at? Can you make that bigger?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
please.
think you'll be coming in here.
Here we go. I think this thing.
Oh, there we go.
I'll move it around.
That's okay.
Mr. Jackson, too. Okay, good.
For family.
Well, what's that?
That's a detail showing this property bumped out here. I can ask Mr. Parker, who's the site designer, on that for a second. I've forgotten the details of that. But here's the entrance, the main entrance, right here.
Oh,
See?
okay.
There's the crosswalk that connects the sidewalk that goes around the whole site. And here are the other entrances onto.
We don't have anything like that, do we?
Yeah, you can't.
It's there, but it's very faint.
Okay.
But that's the main entrance.
Also important to note too, is we lined up for the entrance across the street, and we do have turn lanes in College Avenue that will serve both entrances.
Is this going to be right turn only if you're
You're not gonna be able to make a left
westbound?
hand yet.
Not eastbound making a left turn, or I guess that's northbound.
My
so
sister
it's-
would have a cow if I said this right here, red van, trying to make a left-hand turn out of here, accident. So I'm checking, are you gonna be able to make a left-hand turn out of that to try and get here
The
this
current
way?
plan allows for left turn out, but as part of the process, we're gonna have to do.
There's Lincoln, here's Snow Hill Road, there's College Avenue. So this is, hair studio and the car wash and the Shell station.
So these.
And that's 500 feet? So traffic-wise, Mr. Moles, has anybody looked at this and said if you can take a left-hand turn out of there? Because this, I mean, this is our life now. Is Mr. Moles still here?
Yeah,
Did he leave? Okay, my question would be State Highway Administration Standards and TBS, TSD, whatever it is, something like that.
The Public Works Department did review this from the various stages, very beginning, all the way up through your last presentation, our last presentation of this to the City Council. When the project is presented to the Planning Commission, these traffic turning movements will be discussed and reviewed by the Public Works staff. They will submit a staff report to the Planning Commission that will work out these details about turning movements. I suspect they'll find that the left-hand turn is probably going to be okay. But if they don't, there might be an issue of signalization and turning movements that the developer always is prepared to grapple with.
Yeah, after this stage.
Frustrating left turns.
Yes, it would.
Yeah,
You have to do
after
that
the
for a while.
annexation has concluded, we have a lot of engineering to do. Public Works, Maryland State Highway, Planning and Zoning, they're all gonna have a crack at it. They're all gonna make sure that turning movement is provided.
Are they gonna allow for some improvement to that turn at Snow Hill and College is
Most likely they're gonna require.
difficult
Yes.
anyway. And College being so narrow and just having put sidewalks all down this side, I can only see that to widen it to get any acceleration, deceleration lane would have to cut into this property.
Yes, that's planned.
I just think, and I think like everybody's brought up, this entrance here, especially with people wanting to get in and out, I just knowing the traffic on that road like we all do, it's gonna be backed up in the parking lot. People are stuck trying to make a left turn, so.
Even the right turn's gonna be tricky.
Yeah, and it's just something, you know, that, I mean, from what we're seeing, but certainly the, what is it, the Traffic and Safety Advisory Board as well.
Yeah, and there are a host of improvements if the future developer or the use that wants to come in here has to have it, wants to have it, there are a host of improvements that they can make to the roadway, i.e. add a full lane, add, you know, a whole lot more capacity to the road to allow that movement. So with time, money, and engineering, I think anything is possible.
If you, let's just say you got to that point and we're gonna widen it, you're gonna get here and you're gonna have private property here. I mean, is there enough in the right-of-way on that side of College Avenue to?
I've sketched in a code compliant acceleration.
No, I mean, even if you're gonna go further down,
And if we can't, then it's a moot point.
right?
You know, if physically we can't do it, you know, as I mentioned, there's a whole host of options to make it possible if they desire it that strongly, i.e. buy land from them, somehow, you know, give enough time, money, and engineering, I think you can make it safe for anybody.
Does this road go all the way through on this little path here? I was expecting to see an entrance on the back end, sort of like the Wawa here. This part right here.
There's
this
two
road. It
entrances
looks like
on
there's
East
like a
Lincoln
road there.
Avenue.
That's just a forested buffer that we provide.
Okay.
Yeah, this.
That's probably more for like deliveries and stuff.
Are those two entrances?
This is mainly just to get a delivery truck and park it back here and then be able to pull back out. I don't see any.
That's behind the
Mr. Parker, you've lived in Salisbury almost your entire life. You and I both know we will find some way to get in somewhere faster. Now, come on now.
You know, but this just basically connects to here. It's
Okay.
mainly just
So it's just a little
loop.
cul-de-sac,
Yes,
like.
yes, ma'am.
Big old deliveries only sign,
Yeah.
so we can't get in there.
There's no doubt this site plan makes very efficient use of the parcel that's offered, but it adds 2 new businesses potentially or more, depending on how this is gonna be subdivided. But this is an infill parcel, they're always tricky. But Public Works will have to weigh in on this, SHA will have to, the developer is committed to doing pedestrian improvements in this intersection to connect it to the sidewalk system that he is proposing to build. So it's gonna be a pedestrian, set of pedestrian improvements that will accompany this project.
Well, there's a lot of residential back there too, so that's where
Tie it all in from
the
the
core
sidewalk.
customers will come from.
But if it doesn't pass muster with the engineering review at SHA, the county, and the city, then it doesn't move forward.
That's fine. Somebody will ask. I just, after South Division Street and that whole thing over the last 6 years, I should have it memorized in my brain exactly how far you have to be before you could open it back up again.
Yeah, and there's a whole host of options we have, you know, to pacify engineers that are concerned with it. And if those possibilities are exhausted, then it's not gonna happen. You know, we have to trust in the engineering professionals that look at this, that look at the numbers. You know, traffic study will have to be done. SHA is gonna comment. There's a host of things we need to do after this phase, and if it's not possible, it's not possible. Chances are we may just end up with it right in, right out here. But I would hate to preclude that option now, again.
That's hectic too, because for the simple fact, who wants to ride halfway down the avenue to have to turn around and come back the opposite direction?
Yeah, you know, and again, it's a traffic study.
Well, conversely, if you don't make people do that, then you end up with the situation that you have
Yeah, you're
right here,
right.
right now. I mean, so yeah, well, let's just make sure the mayor, because he loves this stuff. He loves this stuff. Let him look over it. I liked it. I wouldn't say loved it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
both
you
of
so much for that.
And do we have that document that we can put up on the website in case the public wants to see that as well? I don't think we have anything quite that detailed.
Full resolution, is that what you're, like they do from the city?
Right.
Election act.
Oh, you were talking this kind of resolution, not resolution
No,
like,
resolution
okay,
is-
gotcha. Zoom lens resolution then. Thank you. All right, are there any other questions regarding Resolution 2565 at this point? Well, I see it is in the packet, okay, but it is difficult to get it big enough to see. All right, thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions, I will call for the question on resolution number 2565. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, and then resolution number 2566, I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution approving the Malone College Avenue, Snow Hill Road annexation plan.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stevenson, any additional comments?
None other than to say, again, the first ordinance proposed the annexation. The second companion, I said ordinance resolution 2566 would approve the annexation plan.
Thank you very much. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank
very
you.
much. Next up, we have another public hearing. I will open the public hearing on the fair housing language at this point. Do we have any comments requested, Madam Clerk?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay. Anyone present that wishes to speak to the fair housing resolution? Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Tillman.
Okay, the first ordinance is 2366, and this is the proposed change to, well, I'm going to actually reverse this, because I think I almost need to talk about them in reverse of the order that they're here, so that you understand why there are two separate ordinances.
Okay. Could I take just a moment and do a couple of things?
Certainly.
First, I'm going to close the public hearing since we had no public comment. And I'll entertain a motion. You want to do 67 first?
No, I just wanted to explain, you know, they're kind of in reverse order in the way they're set up here. So I was just going to reverse my explanation, but you can do them in any order you please.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 2366.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Explain away.
Okay. All of this resulted from recommendations to make the city zoning code basically more friendly and to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what we ended up doing here was changing two things. The family definition is being partially amended as a group of not more than 4 persons who are approved by the Department of Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance pursuant to section 1524-1620 as a functional family. And the reason for this change is that the functional family was limited to no more than 4 people, but Maryland state law and federal law, primarily state law, will let you go with higher numbers in the case of disabled individuals living together. And that law also requires that the city reasonably accommodate the needs of disabled individuals under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So what we've tried to do then is basically refer people, the first part is just a capitalization issue and a reference to it. But the second paragraph, number 2, is a group of 4 or more disabled persons as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act who are approved by the Department of Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance pursuant to section 1524-1620. And that's the reason I said we were kind of doing these in reverse, is because the first ordinance is the change to 1524-1620. And that's basically the definition of the functional family. And we need to do 2 separate ordinances because one is the zoning code and one is the building code, basically. And so the first ordinance is amending the building code, and the only real change there is that in the first part is we're also making an exception for people who are supported by others as a result of alimony or child support, and I think that was something that should have always been there. Number 2, it says, in the case of an application by persons who are disabled pursuant to the terms of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Department of Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance shall make a determination of whether a functional family exists under 15.24.16201. When making that determination, the Department of Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance shall make any necessary and reasonable accommodations, including the modification of conditions required by subsection 1 of this section and the allowance of more than 4 unrelated individuals in the same household when necessary to comply with the applicable federal and state laws regarding fair housing and persons with disabilities. So in those cases, I think if I remember correctly in my research and preparing for this, there's actually a state law that says that you must consider these people families when living together, as disabled individuals. I mean, there's criteria for that, but if they meet that criteria, you can't limit it to just 4. But the intent of this ordinance would be not to make the number bigger for everybody, but when it's necessary for disabled individuals to live in a group of more than 4, they would be permitted to do so.
Oh.
Who wants to go first?
I know what he's thinking. How does this,
Property maintenance, I'm sorry, thank you, Tom.
how does this affect other current laws that we have on the book in the city? I believe is what.
Yeah, it would really have no effect. Everything else would remain the same. This would only be when individuals qualifying under state law as disabled individuals living together in a household came in and applied to be a functional family. And they would have to apply just like anyone else. But when they did that, what it's saying is we have these criteria that are applicable generally. But in the case of disabled individuals, you can't always apply these criteria. One example might be the one where an individual is not supported by someone outside the home. You could have a disabled adult who is being supported by his parents. So you wouldn't be able to meet that definition of a functional family, and the neighborhood services would be able to modify that and say, in this case of these disabled individuals living in this house, it's not possible to meet that. And so as not to preclude disabled people from qualifying as a functional family, we're going to make a reasonable accommodation here and allow them to not meet that standard, for example.
So this makes void our laws if someone comes in and neighborhood services is made to determine whether or not they're a functional family?
When they apply to be a functional family, when they file that application, and really, whether we change this ordinance or not, if you don't change it and we're found not to have made a reasonable accommodation, then we'd be in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
I'm confused because at some point it's going to...
It's not saying you have to change it.
Did we do something, or is this something that's happening across the country and the federal government saying this is
It's a recognition in our
Because
code.
my concern is that after a while, it's gonna be persons with white things on top of the table can just go ahead and disregard our protection of single-family neighborhoods.
Well,
I mean, we have disabled people who live in my neighborhood, and they are allowed to live as many deep as they can get without anybody saying anything at all. They are protected. So is this another group?
when you're talking about what type of housing are you referring to?
They're group homes.
Okay. This specifically is not talking about group homes, and we haven't amended the law with regard to group homes. And for example, we're not changing that. We're just saying that when these people qualify under state law to live together as a single housekeeping unit or a family. Basically, the state law says that you can't single out people like this and say they're not a family under your definition of the code, because the state law recognizes the need of disabled individuals to be able to live in a single family neighborhood. And you can't exclude that.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that completely, but I'm trying to figure out, A, what you mean by disabled, B, what has to be the relationship. I don't understand what the relationship.
For example, if you have a home that's owned by one of the organizations in Salisbury that serves mentally retarded individuals, or if they serve people who are on some kinds of machine, in other words, some people live in these single family homes who really require nursing care, who require significant amounts of medical.
Discriminate against them.
And we do not. And the purpose of this is to make sure that if, for example, 5 of those people were going to live together and share a medical, like a medical nurse in the house as an economic means of staying there, that they would be permitted to do that. I mean, that's kind of the idea behind the state law, is that, for example, it might not be feasible for just 4 people to live together. But see, as part of this process, these individuals would have to show that we need to reasonably accommodate them, that the need is there for them to be a greater number.
I think my concern is not with the handicapped or the law, but what we have is we have people who buy houses and then find people who will fit these definitions because it is assured money each month. And then is there anything in there about who's in charge of the property, who is, when we have problems,
right?
When we have issues with other groups that have come in before neighborhood services and code compliance, the group that's getting the money for the individuals when something goes wrong in the past says, well, they're independent people, but they're the one taking the money based on the federal government providing. It's a very difficult position for us to be in, because not one of us would want to discriminate against anybody, but what we do have is people who make money off these people.
Right.
And now they come here and they will say to Mr. Lennox, and they will say to you, and they will say to the Board of Housing Adjustments and Appeals, they're protected. So my question is are there accommodations for code enforcement? If people are handicapped, are they not responsible for code enforcement?
Yeah, they would be.
Well, then it's not going to be them, it's going to be the person who owns the house, and therein lies what our situation is in our city right now.
I don't believe that you would have a situation where someone who was in the business of making money off of, and going out and seeking out disabled individuals would be able to put together a house to file one of these applications.
Mr. Tillman, I would say to you, knowing this town, I think that's exactly what would happen.
But I think we could deny that individual when they tried. I think we would not have to, it would be beyond reasonable accommodation to try and do that.
Mrs. Jackson.
Are we governing how many people live in a household?
Yes.
Yes.
Under the definite, in single-family neighborhoods, yes.
Yes. I have a couple of questions as well. One is, in this section of the code, let me get back to it, 1524-1600, under scope, it says provisions of this article shall govern the occupancy of dwelling units within the city of Salisbury. It doesn't say owner-occupied or rental or both. It just says dwelling units. which implies both. But from there on, the code goes on to dwelling unit registration, which only applies to rentals, dwelling unit registration, 3 persons, functional family, all the things that relate only to rentals. So it seems to me that that scope is inaccurate.
Well, we weren't looking at that aspect of going back and trying to redefine the code. In that respect, we were only looking at complying, making the minimum changes necessary to comply with federal and state law.
Right.
That was the goal of this ordinance. The dwelling, some of that law does apply only to rentals, and some would apply as well to owner occupied. I don't think, if there's some issue with the way it's originally set up with scope, obviously we could expand that scope to include both, but the language of that section is not intended to apply only to rentals, for example.
Okay, well, under everything, I guess pretty much everything, my opinion is when you open up a section of the code, we should look at it comprehensively, not just one little piece here, one little piece there, because that leads to conflicts and issues with this part doesn't agree with that part, and that we should look at it more comprehensively, and perhaps we could do that between now and second reading. I'm sorry, this is ordinance. Between now and second reading, because I'm not sure that that is accurate, first of all. My other concerns with this, under the section B, where you included now child support and alimony, or excluded that, essentially, would that include things like quadros as well, qualified domestic relations orders from federal, particularly military? They get those, and they don't necessarily have to be married in order, if they're together for X period of time and they separate. If they've had 20 years in the service and they've been together for 10 of them, the person they're separating from is entitled to a part of their pension or part of their salary.
In that,
and those are not, that's not alimony, and it's not child support, but
And
it could
it's
be
also-
supporting that household.
it's also not being supported by someone outside the household. When you get a quadro like that, that is your right. You have a right to that money as pursuant to court order and the law. So in that particular example, that would be, if I were to divorce my spouse, I might be entitled to a judgment for a portion of her retirement plan. And if that were to occur, that's my money now. It may be in her retirement plan, but it's still, that's something that I'm not receiving from her as support. That's really done as part of a marital property award. So that becomes my entitlement.
Okay. I'm just concerned that there are other types of employment or other types of support. We're narrowly defining it here by saying child support and alimony.
Well, most entitlement programs, for example, if you were a recipient of SSI or Social Security, those are benefits to which you are entitled.
Correct.
This is only referring to supported by an individual, meaning there's a person out there who is supporting you, and this person is not making alimony or child support payments. And specifically at the time, the intent was so that when you're a member of a functional household unit, that this is a real functional household unit that's supporting each other. It's not just a bunch of people living together who are all getting a check from mom or dad. So who lives somewhere else.
Okay.
One other question I was asked earlier about regulating the number of people in a household. Related individuals related by blood, marriage, adoption, or a court order are not regulated by the number. It's only when you start bringing in unrelated individuals that we actually start looking. We do have limits on it, but generally, 10 people who are members of the same family are certainly welcome to live together in a single-family neighborhood, unless you go over what's considered to be dangerous number of people living in a house. And then a separate section of the code would regulate that.
How do you determine that, though?
But square footage issues, health,
Number of
safety,
bedrooms.
where.
Okay. No, but I'm saying, how do you determine whether these people are families or what?
By these criteria, A through G in our packet.
Well, no,
Primarily.
I think Mr. Stevenson can answer that question. He's involved in that process, or was before he took this job.
Councilwoman Jackson, I think typically it's by some sort of identification. And I know sometimes people don't have the same last name that are related, but typically it's a driver's license, birth certificate, or something like that. But with that said, I wouldn't want you for a minute to take away the idea that Neighborhood Services or any other agency within the city of Salisbury is banging on people's doors and saying we need proof that you are actually related. Those situations occur few and far between.
Okay. I just want to share a couple of comments about this. It's not what we're doing in this scope, but again, back to looking at the whole thing, we have some criteria here that says shall be met. It's not by example. There are specific criteria, which one of those is share a single household budget. I know many married people that don't share a household budget. I mean, they have separate accounts. You pay these bills, I pay those bills, and maintain separate bank accounts. Share in the repair and maintenance of the dwelling. Well, if it's a rental, that's more than likely the property owner. So how many rentals are able to jump that hurdle? I'm not sure if that's belongs in this section of the code as one of those criteria. And prepare and eat meals together on a regular basis. That's probably a minority in the country now, unfortunately. A lot of people work shift work or sports schedules and different things and may not sit down together at a meal. So I'm just wondering if we have the right set of criteria here for determining what a functional family is.
Mm-hmm. That at any time could be open to debate, but each of these criteria are the result of many years of legal cases deciding what is a functional family. Generally, the single family unit or a single housekeeping unit is not defined by code. It's defined by case law and court decisions that found what those people were. This is an attempt to follow those court decisions and to list what it was. A single household budget would not necessarily be sharing your savings accounts or your checking accounts. It's actually sharing expenses at the household, where you share, you may both share in paying the electric bills. You might share a vehicle that would be titled in two members of the household's name. The purpose of that was to avoid, basically, as the councilman just mentioned earlier, to avoid the situation where you have a landlord who puts an ad in the newspaper looking for a fourth or fifth individual to live in my house on College Avenue. And so in other words, you're looking for a group of people who are living together because they operate as a functional family, not because they're just trying to find a room somewhere, which in effect could turn a house into a boarding home in a single family neighborhood. But those criteria are really determined by case law, and it's nowhere in this code. But the single housekeeping unit really is that could be used against families that don't constitute that, and actually they could be determined not to be single family units as a result of that. I don't think that that's generally pursued, but it's legally could be under the code. And one of the criteria, whether you're a related group of individuals or whether you're unrelated, is that you be a single housekeeping unit. You're not allowed to take houses in Salisbury, for example, even with a family, and to put a kitchen upstairs for brother number one and his family, and a kitchen downstairs for brother number two, because although everyone in the house may be related, you're basically that's become a duplex at this point. And that's not supposed to occur in a single family neighborhood. But again, these two ordinances are really an attempt to comply with the minimum standards for families and individuals with disabilities under our law, so that we're not accused of discriminating against anyone illegally and preventing them from living in a single family neighborhood.
So everybody's having to do this?
Yes.
Is the county having to do this?
We did it because it was recommended to us by the consultants.
Who completed the analysis of impediments to fair housing.
Right. But in reality,
did that
Ms.
consultant
Stam, if you would join us.
find impediments here? I'm just trying to figure out whether or not, I doubt it's something we did. We're more apt to put the second floor kitchen in and call it two units. But was there something here, or was this just something that everybody's doing nationally?
Yes, everybody's doing this nationally, and so when he was reviewing the issues of how do we define a functional family and so forth, one of the recommendations that the consultant made was that we do expand our definition of functional family as it pertains to disabled individuals, so that we would be in line with state and federal law.
And again, I'm not disagreeing with it. You know, I think we should welcome it, but I am worried that this doesn't happen. These homes don't crop up in expensive neighborhoods in the county. So I'm concerned that what we have here is most certainly evidence that there have been protected groups that people buy houses for, and that those protected groups are in there because that rent is always going to be paid. It is always going to be above the market value. It is always going to be paid for mortgages. And we have many houses where the mortgages have been paid off and they are still there, and there are issues with them. So my question, I guess maybe to you, is did anyone explain to them the problems that we have in our single family neighborhoods with the protection of people who meet this designation as it is right now? Or did they say, the feds say you got to do this, Debbie, go to your city council and tell them you got to do that? I mean, that's one of those things we say in the school system. It's either red, green, or blue. Red is they told you you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do it. Mm-hmm. If that's what this is, then somebody say so, and we'll go back. I'll go back to my neighborhood association and say we may need to get ready for another onslaught of houses being bought up.
Well, I know when we discussed this, I did mention that we were concerned that we didn't want to get too far afield with the number of individuals. And his suggestion was that we could potentially limit it to, say, 6. But then, you know, Mark has done additional research, and so whether we could, you know, say that not more than 6, more than 4, but not more than 6, that I guess that would be a question for Mark, whether we could limit it to 6 individuals.
What is the limitation? I'm sorry.
I mean, wouldn't the road to go on with some of this issue be more along the lines of having it more definitive by fire code, square footage, a formula in that format per property? Is that, I mean, something, maybe this is a discussion for another day, but I think maybe that might be more definitive, where, hey, in this property you only have 3 bedrooms, so you can't put 8 people.
Well, and I would think that would supersede, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Tom, okay,
Square
so.
footage is always going to weigh in. You need 70 square feet of living space for the first person in the bedroom and 50 for each additional person. So if you only had 3 bedrooms, it's going to be unlikely that you can get.
So if square footage wise, the house was simply too small for 6 individuals, then, you know, then it's too small.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, number of bedrooms, but the square footage is.
But doesn't the individual go and sue and say that your laws make it impossible for me, because of my disability, to live in a house with people who are my family, but they're not really my family? I don't.
Well, then,
I'm only saying to you is that we'll all be in this situation. Somebody in Susan's office will be in this situation. And I just want us to make sure that we're thinking about all of that. If it does mean going back and look at it, and I would love to go back and look at it with everyone, but obviously we have to do this.
I'm not the attorney, obviously, but I would think that they wouldn't have a legal leg to stand on, because if the house is plenty big enough and we are, you know, not providing accommodation for, let's say, 6 disabled individuals, but if the house is simply too small to accommodate that many people, then I would think they would not have a case. Does that sound reasonable?
Part of it also depends on, you know, with the property, does it need to be wheelchair accessible? Does it need depending on the disability?
Depending on the disability, obviously. Right. You know, if some of the residents were in wheelchairs, then they would have to have, and that would be another housing code issue. They would have to have appropriate accessibility for whoever was going to be living in the building.
Depending on what equipment they require,
right.
For mobility or for breathing or whatever else, that could even further restrict how many you could put in the room,
because of the amount of equipment you might need in any individual bedroom, I would guess.
Right.
Well, Mark, could you speak to, and if you can't understand it, but the first thing we come to in our heads when we say disability is a physical disability. That isn't the only disability that's out there.
No.
In fact,
Right.
In my neighborhood, it's not physical disabilities at all that are in homes that are protected. It's not a physical disability at all. So
you can, this does not, for example, prevent you from keeping halfway houses, or, if anyone's been guilty of committing a crime and they've been released, they don't qualify as disabled individuals generally. There has to be a legitimate disability in order for these people to qualify. And the state law, that what we're saying here is we're going to make a reasonable accommodation to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act or to comply with Maryland state law. We're not going beyond that. So I think Maryland law had that 6 individual limit, that 6 people would be presumed to be a single family if they met the criteria. But you can also, other factors can be taken into consideration. For example, that the house is too small, that their disabilities can't be accommodated in this space. I mean, those are all things that should be taken into consideration.
Nobody's disagreeing with you. I'm saying to you, the work of our housing officials is when other people disregard this, and then we get into a situation where we're having to prove. So I would really like to know whether or not Wycomico County is going to do it, and I would like to know, what happens in their neighborhoods. When something like this goes down.
The people who are applying have to apply for this functional family thing. They have the burden of proving that. We don't. So, in other words, what we're saying is, if you apply, you're not going to be excluded simply because your father is helping to pay for your care in this home.
Is there anything in the particular legislation that talks about the number of these and how close they can be to one another? Because that's come up in the neighborhoods before, with houses of like disability being so close to one another, when in all actuality they are supposed to be a certain distance apart.
Right.
But people,
you could do that here.
You what?
You could do that here. You could limit you can limit the numbers so that you don't have a neighborhood that just becomes, a medical facility. You can place limits on them if you want to do that.
I say that's already happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already happened because people have taken their houses and they have turned them into, they are investment properties, and they find, I'm going to vote for this because we have to, because the federal government's going to find, so there's obviously been some case law out there where someone has been discriminated against, and I appreciate that, and we should all be vigilant. But as I have said to you, and as I have said to the federal government, and I've said to neighbors, this is another opening of the can. I would like to know whether or not the county is going to do this and take this up, because I feel as if we are targeted by investors who take properties, or people who are moving away, and what am I going to do with this property? And hence you have what I have on Philadelphia, Philadelphia, New York, Ferndale, and Lakeview, which is an incredible amount of houses for protected classes that are not a mile from one another. They're not 2 miles from one another. They are stacked right in the middle of single-family neighborhoods.
Mr. Ireton?
Yeah.
May I suggest that since this is first reading, perhaps we could do the first reading tonight and put this on the work session for next Monday to discuss adding something regarding that if it doesn't exist somewhere else already, and including that in this?
Yeah, please.
Before second reading?
And I know from my research, and I don't have it in my head right now, but you can place limits on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So how about if we do that? We'll take the vote on first reading tonight. We'll have this on the work session, Mr. Stevenson, for Monday.
Yes.
So that we can perhaps make that adjustment before second reading. Okay. Any further questions, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the approval of ordinance number 2366 for first reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye. And then ordinance number, thank you, Ms. Stam. Motion to approve ordinance number 2367 for first reading.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Mr. Tillman.
Okay, this is the actual change in the zoning code. And which I already read this earlier, but the big issue here is that you're including a group of 4 or more disabled persons as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So they have to meet that standard. who are approved by the Department of Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance pursuant to the other section, who have come in and applied to be a functional family. This, again, just had to be a separate ordinance because the one to change the zoning code has to go through planning, and the other one does not.
Thank you for correcting the capitalization while we're in here.
That was my attempt, a limited way to do the comprehensive review.
Hey, while we're in there. All right, any questions on this? It's essentially the same, just for the zoning code. No. All right, all those in favor of approval of ordinance number 2367 for first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. That's it for ordinances and resolutions and votes. The next thing we have, the last thing we have, is the presentation of the audit by Internal Services Director Keith Cordray and Ms. Pam Baker. Well, it looks like Keith's deferring to Ms. Baker.
He's just deferred to me.
From Marvin K. Thornton Company.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. Thanks for having me this evening. So what we handed out to you this evening was the nice, pretty bound copy of the final audit. You have two documents. One is the comprehensive annual financial report, the audited financial statements, and the second is the single audit supplement. What I'm here tonight to do is to just provide the top-level results of the audit. As you know, we were here last week on Monday night, and we had an opportunity to sit down and actually go through the report itself. So I'm not going to walk everyone through that, but there are some things that I do want to point out as your independent auditor. First and foremost, we are here this evening to document the fact that the independent audit for the year ended June 30, 2015 is complete. It was completed in accordance with the original timeline for completion of the audit. The management of the city, who's responsible for closing the books and records and putting together the financial statements, did that. They did that in a timely manner. When we came on site to do our audit, as we went through our process to document what your internal control processes were for all of the major internal control cycles, we tested the major control cycles. As a result of that, we did not find any material weaknesses. We did not find any significant deficiencies. And so embodied in this report, you have our opinion that your internal control systems did not have material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Probably the most significant part of this audit, for those of you, and I believe you will make this available on your website. So pages 2, 3, and 4 do represent the independent auditor's report. And what that says is that, once again, the financial statements themselves are the responsibility of management. We, as independent auditors, are responsible to determine that internal controls exist that ensure that the financial statements that are prepared by management are materially correct. And we were able to opine that your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and in other words, management did what they were charged to do. We did not have significant audit adjustments. The biggest change this year, so for those who have had an opportunity to review these reports in the past, and if you looked at last year's report, there is one big change. There are two big changes in this year's report. One is the implementation of new accounting standards, which require that because you have employees, that you make contributions to the state pension plan. Because you participate in that plan, there's a new accounting rule that says the city must, if to the extent that plan is underfunded, and it is, you have to pick up your proportionate share of that pension liability. And so that has been reflected in your financial statements, and it was a fairly significant liability. Now, what it means to you from a fiscal perspective is that it's a big liability, but it is not one that you are responsible for funding any differently than you fund your budget now. So what you're responsible for is to make your annual contributions, and you're 100% current on those, and there's a separate supplementary schedule now in this report that points that fact out, that you are in compliance with your contribution requirements to the plan. And so that is one thing that is important from a perspective of when you look at these statements, they do look different because that liability now lives on your statements. The other thing this year, as you know, over the past few years, you had a major project for your water and sewer treatment plant, and you had some difficulties encountered. So coming into this year, a lot of things were decided definitively. One, you knew where you stood with that plant. There had been a lot of legal settlements. We've recognized the litigation settlements in the past 2 and 3 years. Those have come in. And so this year it was time to deal with that capital construction because it was not yet placed in service, because it wasn't complete, but yet you're utilizing that system until such time as the remaining construction in progress can be done and that system can be put into place. So this year what management did is they went and working really with engineers and those close to the project, said, when this project is finished, for what we've spent today, how much can we put into service? What's going to live beyond? So it was determined to be about 50% was going to ultimately live on. And so this year, under the applicable accounting rules, an impairment loss was taken for the piece that is limping along but will not be sustainable long-term to that project. That's one of the transactions that we worked closely with and looked at because it was about $40 million right off in the water sewer plant. So we did look at that rather closely. One other thing I'll just point out, just to touch on the pensions again, there are about 5 new pages of footnotes. So if anyone is interested in knowing more about the pension trust that you do participate in, there's a lot of really good information now in the footnotes. Lastly, I would talk about the single audit report. It's a separate report that you have. Most significantly here is for the past 2 years, you did have some compliance findings related to your federal programs, and those have been resolved and have been completely taken care of, and so you did not have any compliance findings this year. So you really had a clean report all the way around. We made mention last week of the fact that your operations, your finance division of the city undertook last year, and even more significantly this year, the process of taking your automated system and generating financial statements. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that once again that is a huge undertaking. It's not easily done. We work with a lot of large governments, and most of them are remiss to be able to pull that off. So, really, I do think it really helped, not just from a standpoint of it was a success, and hopefully going forward will make this process even more smooth. But I also think from a control perspective, that's going to reduce the amount of potential internal control situations that you may have, because you have systems that have automated checks and balances that are going to help to drive that end product. And I think that's probably the most significant thing for you to know as a council, that by Keith and his team putting that in place, they've really strengthened your internal controls for the overall agency. So with that, I would thank Keith and his department and those throughout the city, really, that we have to work with when we're down here and on site. And if you have any questions, either left over from last week, or if you want me to point something out specifically tonight, I'm happy to do that. So I'll open it up to you for any questions.
Any questions?
Who said that it was required that we show this liability? And I should have done this the other day, and I apologize.
okay.
I'm waiting until 7:45 on a Monday night. I do apologize.
That's okay.
Who said we had to show it?
Okay, so it's an accounting standard. So the Governmental Accounting Standards Board sets accounting policies for any government, all governments.
Okay.
So it's national standards. So yeah, it's not just the state, or it's not just
So my
local.
concern is this, and you are emphatic. I love you. You speak with your hands. So I find that we are kindred spirits. You say it's a huge liability. Emphasis on huge. It was a 4-syllable huge you gave us, but we're not responsible for it. So I get that. That sounds so much like the federal government, leading to the issue we had just before this one. Do you believe that this is a precursor to being responsible for it. If now you have to show it on your books what you're responsible for, but you're not responsible for, and it's huge, does this mean, do you believe, is this opening the door to, can you see down at the end of the tunnel that we are going to be responsible for our portion that is huge that we are not responsible for now? Because
Right.
if you're watching this on TV, what you've heard is it's a huge liability that's on your books, but you're not responsible for it.
Right.
Then why is it on our books?
Right, and that's why I said that. So the reason that I said huge is because maybe that wasn't a good technical
No,
term.
it's
So
true,
the-
it is huge.
Yeah, but then the reason I pointed that out is because if you do have people that are looking at these statements and they looked at last year's statements, they're going to look at the fact that you booked a liability of $66 million,
Well,
which
I didn't book it. Somebody told me I
Correct.
had to book it.
Correct, the city did, that drove the city into a deficit position.
Right.
And I think it's important for people to understand that it did, but of course, the next logical place that a local government goes to is budget impact. And so
Right.
that's why I said, there's not a budget impact because your budget responsibility is to budget and pay the required contributions on an annual basis. And so that's where I was coming from. To answer your question, that's a really good question. I do believe that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, even though I don't have their crystal ball, but if you just talk for a minute about the theory of why this now sits on your financial statements, it's in response to the fact that there are governments across our country. Some of them, think of Detroit, think of California. There are governments out there who have been living in this world where they did not fund their pensions, and they set these trusts out there, and they're statewide trusts, and they said all local governments can participate, and just give us some money, and we're going to be responsible with it, and we're going to tell you what to contribute. And they don't always contribute what should be contributed to fund that, much like Social Security at the federal government level. So I think the Governmental Accounting Standards Board said, enough. People are not seeing the impact at the local level. So if we make this accounting rule and push it onto the books, it's going to push forward the conversation, because now what everybody knows and what everybody talks about, you're living with it. And it's going to drive the conversation of what are we going to do about it. Now, in Maryland, right now, Maryland state government has said, and they've said it in writing, that this unfunded up to this point in time, don't worry, they're going to take care of. We don't know that. The next legislature could change their mind and say we're upping everybody's contribution. So the real answer to your question is, it is going to force that conversation. It's been there, but this makes it a little more real, and it does provide an opportunity for that discussion to take place. So where it would affect you, if it came a point in time where you had to fund that liability or pay that liability, it would be through your contributions to the state plan. Okay, so if you were contributing at X percent, they would increase that percent, and that's how that would be funded. But other things impact that liability. It's an estimate. So it's also affected by the discount rate that the actuary uses and the investment returns that happen with that plan. So there are a lot of variables in there. It's not as easy as we have an invoice for a service that was provided and we're going to pay it. It's going to change every single year.
But it won't have an effect on our bond rating. It won't have an effect on our ability to...
It should not, because that goes back to anyone who has rated bonds in a municipal environment already knows this is the way that the governments work. They already know there's these trust funds out there, so they've already taken that into consideration.
And this Governmental Accounting Standards Board, I know they all look like Keith and talk like Keith, and that's good because they should. Who's responsible for them, and what does the municipality or its leaders have in terms of recommending to them what's good for us?
Well, the GASB is a set of individuals that are appointed. If you want to sit on the GASB board, and it's regionalized throughout the country, you have to have so many academics, you have to have so many people like Keith, you have to have so many people like me, you have to have so many different people that come together to really foster pronouncements, right? And so when they do, any time that they embark upon a process to change an accounting rule, there are a number of just like you had tonight, a public hearing. They have things like exposure drafts, they have hearings. And so anyone that could be affected by it, including, Salisbury, you have an opportunity to participate in those hearings, to let your voice be heard about what that's going to do to impact you. And so it goes through a long process before it gets adopted and becomes an accounting principle.
Last question. If I were to Google, like any other, I don't want to say normal, human being, Google Government Accounting Standards Board,
Yes.
liability of pensions
Yes.
in municipal government, am I going to get the discussion and how they came to decide that this year and not last year, Salisbury has to table, what was it, 66 million? Would you say it was?
Yes, about 66 million. Yes, if you Google GASB pension, because it's been such a significant accounting rule, you will get not only the GASB's presentation for the general public, you can get the discussion of all the basis for conclusions. You can find out everything you want to know about it.
Are these people, do they vote?
Yes.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh, no, I like reading that. Then. That's good. Okay.
Yes,
I
they'll
can
tell
balance it.
you the basis for conclusion, and they'll give you they'll give you much more of what I tried to synopsis for you tonight, which is a little bit of the theory behind. Oh, did I say the wrong number? Sorry, Keith.
Gatsby 68?
Oh, it's 23 million, I'm sorry.
It's 23 million?
23 million.
I looked down at the number at your bonds.
66, 23.
23, 23 million, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I
That's the
stand
pronouncement
corrected.
number.
Thank you. I really do appreciate the layman's explanation for people who are watching.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What was that pronouncement number? Do you remember?
68.
68, that's what I thought. That's why I was throwing out 68.
68, yes.
One other reason that this has been required is so that we can compare apples, our investors can compare apples to apples.
Right.
And if we see financial statements for municipalities in Maryland and compare them to another state, for instance, California.
That's right.
And we see the amount of deficit that they have versus what we have and how stable the state is there and the likelihood that it'll get pushed down to those municipalities versus the likelihood it'll get pushed down to us.
Absolutely.
So that investors can compare all that, is correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what they're trying to do, is have comparability.
Okay. And the
Okay.
only way they can do that is make everybody report
Make
it.
everybody do it, right.
So, own their piece. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions from anybody?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much for making the trip again.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay. I don't see, do we have any public comment? We still have one public left.
Kevin is the one public.
One member of the public remaining. No comments.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we need to vote to accept it at this point? Okay, because I had it as presentation. Okay. Okay. So I have a motion to accept the audit as presented.
So moved?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of approval of or acceptance of the audit as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. No public comments. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.